Now, a lot of people like to identify themselves by their day job or whatever title they have. Thinking like Susie, fitness instructor, Joe Bob, investment banker, that kind of stuff. And when I was preparing for our talk today, I struggled a little bit, and all that could really come to mind was Hudson Leick, conscious being. So currently, what words would you use to describe yourself?
I definitely wouldn't use conscious being. I would say studying consciousness, trying to become more consciousness, trying to be trying to become more conscious, but definitely not enlightened in any way. I don't. I don't really have a typical Western title. I don't have a. I do many things. If you're talking about what I do to earn money, I do astrology readings. I make sacred malas. I teach yoga retreats in Czech Republic, usually, or sometimes online. Yeah, those are basically what I do for earning money. But what really interests me, besides those things, they do interest me. It doesn't feel like just a job to me. It's things I love. Trying to become more conscious, trying to remove more ego, and enjoy life, enjoy this being alive.
Was there any particular draw for you to meditation specifically? Or actually, I also kind of want to ask, which one did you find first, yoga or meditation?
Definitely yoga, right?
Okay.
Meditation, sitting, even sitting now is not always easy. It comes and goes where it becomes easy or delightful, or it becomes a challenge and something I want to avoid. Yoga is much easier to jump into because it's a physical movement. And back when I started doing yoga, I started in Jivamukti when I was in my early 20s in New York City. And then when I moved to LA, I became really involved in it. It was very popular at the time as well. Like, it was super popular. It's when it really started exploding. So more people were doing it, but there was something that my mind could not grasp that felt I would feel a little bit more bliss than I had ever had. A little, and bliss is too strong a word. I would feel calmer. And I had the vanity where I liked moving my body and getting in shape and having a good shape and improving. I was really big into improving at that time, the physical form. So there was a lot to that as well. But I think it's much easier to start with a physical moving meditation than it is to just sit for most people. That's really hard.
About how many years have you been practicing?
Oh my God, I haven't counted, but since I'm almost 55 in May, and I started when I was 23. So whatever that math is.
Okay. We're not going to hold you to any math right now. I'm not going
Ah,
to either.
ah, yay! I
Uh,
did try yoga a couple times in acting school when I was like 20 from a book, and I went to yoga. I went to yoga class, I think, when I was maybe 17, but oh God, it was so hard, and I think it made me feel nauseous, and I had so much emotional crap to deal with. I was not prepared for um, even letting it go. Like, it just made me feel sick.
wow. That sick feeling, is that gosh, that's an interesting thing to hear. I guess I hadn't thought of it. I assume you're not describing that you were out of shape, but that maybe you had something emotionally going on that yoga was upsetting. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and I was out of shape. Like, I was thin, but I didn't. I mean, I cheerleaded, but yoga is very particular. Like, one of my favorite yoga teachers used to talk about how he was very muscular and he would run for 5 miles every day. And he started doing yoga because there was hot girls in the class. And when he would try to do it, he would shake so much and he'd sweat so much there'd be a pool of water going in towards the other girl's mat next to him, and he'd just mortified. So
Oh,
it's yes. Also, you're using different parts of your body, but I understand where the curiosity comes from of where you're going. I think it's very true that when you start clearing yourself, and these are all words. They're just words. It's the words that I'm coming up with. There's no exact perfect words to say what I'm saying. It's just sort of like a poem pointing to in the direction of what I'm trying to get to. Um, when you're doing purification processes of any form, whether it's yoga or Tai Chi or chanting or meditation, a lot of your old stuff can come up. It's like, it's the analogy would be in my mind, kind of like if you have a can and it's really dirty and you keep putting water in it and it keeps flushing out all the dirt. But then when you really, really do the deep stuff, the dirt that's stuck at the very, very bottom has to come up. But that can be more painful for human beings. Emotionally, yeah, I would say emotionally most of all, like anxiety attacks. A lot of my friends, when they got initiated into some form of meditation, would have a lot of emotional feelings come up that were sort of undescribable. And it would be quite intense, but it doesn't last.
I've experienced that myself.
Yeah.
If I didn't have meditation, I can honestly tell you, I do not know where I would be in life right now. I think it would be a very unfortunate story, and I would be a very different person. I'm very happy now, but
Uh-huh.
meditation has saved me. Regarding the benefits of yoga and meditation, I tend to talk about them interchangeably. The benefits, mental and physical, what are some of the primary benefits that you've seen in your personal life?
Well, as you know, because you also have your own practice, it's very sublime. It's not always so in your face, these kinds of changes. It's very subtle. And it's hard to even see sometimes because it's your life, it's your story. I totally agree with, I don't know what I would be like without my practice. I don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to function. I mean, I'm sure I could, but I'd be so shut down. But I have a feeling that a lot of the world is, um, and and that's why there's so much suffering with us.
What drew you to India? And I would love to hear about your first time going.
Sure, sure. So I've always wanted to go to, there's two places I was always drawn towards that I have no idea of. I do believe in past lives. I do, that's my belief. So I'm sure that I probably have been Egyptian and Indian before, but Egypt and India really interested me. But old Egypt, not Egypt as it is now. And I have not been to Egypt. I probably won't go in this life to Egypt. The old ancient way of Egypt is what's fascinating to me. India, I wanted to go to India. I was doing a TV show because I used to act, and it was the first regular TV show that I got. And we had a guest star, and he went to India a lot, and he said, "Don't go to India first because it's going to be too much for your Western brain. Go to Nepal first." So at the age of 25, I packed up and went to Nepal by myself and trekked the Himalayas, and that was incredibly profound, especially being like the beginning of earning a great deal of money by acting and getting a tiny bit of fame um, and becoming what the Western world was telling you was like successful, and then going to this place that was we considered a third world country, but was filled with magic, filled with what we would consider otherworldliness, like something completely different, totally different culture. Now, I had already been to Japan when I was 18, so I'd already been in a completely different culture at a very early age alone. But Japan, I love Japan. It's so special. But I found Nepal because it was nature, it was the Himalayas, um, to be magic in the sense that I had read a book, and I think it was called The Snow Leopard. I think that's what it was called. And it was basically about this Westerner snowboarding in the Himalayas and running into this enlightened Buddhist monk. So I had this fantasy that when I went to um, Nepal, I too would get to meet this enlightened muck, he'd be waiting for me. Like, I really, my ego was such that I felt like this enlightened man would be like, we've been waiting for you, my child. And I was so disappointed that wasn't happening. Plus, I was really addicted at that time of sexualizing myself. So I brought 2 dresses only, and they were down to my ankles, but they showed my shoulders. And shoulders in Nepal at that time was like showing your breasts. Like, it was totally unacceptable. So I did cover, but then I met a man, and I was dating him, and he was Australian, and I hiked with him. But I started going back to my habitual way of being as a 25-year-old, of wearing things that were very sexy. And it caused a lot of problems for myself. And it was not knowingly, out of my own stubbornness and ignorance, was disrespecting their culture as well. So, and I've run into that in India with other younger girls, and it's funny because it makes me laugh, because I'm like, sister, I totally understand. Like, I understand, and I also understand how much pain you're bringing to yourself and to other people, especially if they're trying to be on a spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're, I'm jumping the gun, but if you're in an ashram, especially as a man or younger man, and you have a great deal of sexuality and lust, it can be really triggering to see somebody be revealing when you're trying to be present with not what is in the sense of your own lust, but not engage with your own lust, if that makes any sense. I know it's probably not going to make a lot of sense to Westerners, but if you're going to an ashram, the idea of going to an ashram is to let go of your desires and your aversions, but not to dive into worldliness. So there's a lot I didn't know, of course, when I was 25 years old. And I had all these addictive things. I even played an over-sexual character on TV at that time. And I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about that, but I have compassion for myself, because I was so groomed in a way, being a Westerner, and for my job and how to earn money and being a model. And that was my playing card of my identity of who I was. And that was very, very challenging to let go of, because there was a lot of tension, negative and positive, the slippery slope with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time I went to Nepal.
Okay.
I did my first Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation, while I was in Nepal, and got very sick because I had never been alone with my mind. There's no speaking, no reading. There's only meditating all day. They teach you how to do it. It's all over the world. It's quite amazing. I've done 5 of them in my life now. I highly recommend it. It's free, and you pay whatever you feel like you want to support the person that comes after you. And it's all over the States as well. And it's not religious. It's got a Buddhist bent to it, but it's not at all religious. It's not teaching about any gods or God in general. It's about you diving into yourself, and using your breath to get there. But it was very intense for me, and that's why I got sick. I stayed and I did it, and it was an amazing experience. And then how I ended up getting back to India, or getting to India, is I found my teacher, my guru. And guru, the word guru, what it means means remover of darkness. That's what literally the translation of guru means.
I didn't know that.
A guru is not just a teacher. A lot of times you'll hear me say, if I talk about it, I'll say teacher, because Westerners, when they think of guru, they think of cults, because there's been so many misuse of the word of guru that people have. Spirituality is a slippery slope. That's why they call it the razor's edge. So yeah. The more you go towards this path, the more quote unquote powers you can get, and the more desire you have or aversion you have, you can misuse them towards sexuality, towards money, power, like fame. This is where it gets really slippery for a lot of people. And I'm nowhere high up that level, but I have compassion for the people who have fallen. Not that it's great that they dragged people with them. That's terrible. But I have compassion for them, because it gets harder until you're completely awake. if you're going to be tempted to misuse it, because you're in this human body and you have desires and aversions. You have things you want or you're attracted to, and I don't mean that's only in the sexual term, and you have aversions of things you do not want.
Yes.
And therefore, like, my guru does not have desires and aversions like a normal human being. And how to describe if you have to find a guru. And I've had I don't think I'll go in that direction, but I have experienced the false gurus too, which is completely damaging and terrifying. But any experience that you have in life, forget about gurus or India for a moment, any experience, whether it's positive or negative, can be catapulted to your growth. Always, always, 100%. Everything is for you if you are willing to use it, and even to change your point of view even slightly. It can open up other worlds to you for growth and understanding.
Okay. So I have a question for you about your gurus specifically. Have you had just one guru?
Yes, I mean, I've had a bad experience with someone else, but
Mhm.
I would say a true guru. Well, that's not fair. Autobiography of a Yogi,
Mhm.
Paramahansa Yogananda. He's no longer in body. He left in the 50s. He
Okay.
died in the 50s. But that book, Autobiography of Yogi, I was listening to it last night. I listen to it almost every night as I sleep,
Mhm.
because even as I sleep, it's so profound. Ben Kingsley reads it. So the man who played Mahatma Gandhi in the movie, his name is Ben Kingsley. He's an English actor. He reads
I
the
like
book.
him a lot.
Yeah, I do too. He's a phenomenal human being.
Yes.
Anyways, so yes, and so I would say he is also a guru. But even in the room I'm sitting in right now, as I'm talking to you, I see Yogananda, Amma, Lahiri Mahansa, Babaji, Ramana Krishna, Jesus, Mother Mary, Sri Yukteswar, Vivekananda. Ramana. I'm
Mm.
surrounded with holy people.
Wonderful.
I love Sadhguru, like, because for one, I don't, even though these people would all be considered Hindu,
Mhm.
my belief is everyone that is truly enlightened, they are no religion. It's no religion. When you wake up, fully wake up, I don't use that in some political weird term. I mean it genuinely. You wake up, you're not connected to any religion. You're connected to the whole of everything that is. So
I agree.
religion is the outcome of waking up.
Yes.
And those different religions are different people, and different people surrounded that one person that woke up. And that person, out of compassion and love, they didn't have to interact with us morons that are like struggling and hitting each other on the head and like, doing all the weird stuff we're doing, totally obsessed with our own selfishness. They
Mhm.
don't have to deal with our muck, but out of their compassion, they do. And they say, okay, try this. This way you might be able to free yourself. And
Mhm.
so we lock on to that. We say, this is the only way you can do it. This is the only way. And then we start killing each other over that, because we
Yes.
can be really dumb. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
So
that's my
painful.
thought about that.
So, oh, your guru, I would love to know, because I believe this is how knowledge passes, is that your guru will talk to you and teach you something amazing and profound. And then when you share that knowledge with somebody else, that's her words coming through you, and you become the spreader of that message for other people. So now, in that way, I guess a lot of us have different teachers, and our knowledge comes from all these different places. So I'm curious, what is something profound that you have that your guru has brought into your life, or just
Well,
one, or one of your favorite profound things that she gave you?
Okay, but the way you worded that, I just have to correct it.
Okay.
I am not a representation of my guru. Like
Mm.
I am not, because I have my own selfishness and my own ego and my own misaligned way of understanding of what she may be trying to teach me. So
Okay.
that's very important. That's very, very important. I will only be able to share something, um, and I will not even know necessarily that it's going to be um, pure in a sense, because I am not pure myself. And that doesn't mean I'm sinful or something like that. It doesn't mean I'm dark, but it means I'm in ignorance also. But the little glimmers that I may have to share come through her, not me. But the mistakes I make definitely are my own. Now,
Okay.
this is important to say before I give that answer, and I have to think about it for a moment anyways, but it's important because this is how religions become secular and really weird. Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? So someone is around a guru, that around a pure being, a being that has just a totally different makeup than we do. And then they think they understand, and they start spreading the message from their limited understanding of what that is. And then it gets telephone. You're playing telephone.
Yes.
So that's a slippery slope. I'm
Yeah.
happy to share whatever I think I know,
Mhm.
but I also want to say, I don't know. So don't follow me. Like I am not
Gotcha.
the one to follow.
Yeah.
That's really important.
That's a very important thing that you just said. I had not thought of it quite that way, but you're right. People take messages and twist them into something that can be murderous. I don't remember Jesus particularly ever saying anything about killing people who don't agree with you. That's a new
Yeah.
one on me.
But right, but that's the extreme version of it. But you first have to come from the subtle place. Like you're asking me, and I don't want to, I would not preach to kill people, and I would not say you have to follow this one person and you have to go to India and you have to wear a dot on your head. Like I would not say that at all. But my limited understanding, because I am limited, might skew something for someone else. So they'll say, oh, yes. And I've heard this from a student before. She's like, oh, you're enlightened. I'm like, oh my God, sister, I am not enlightened. Like, you have not met an enlightened person. So and it's not I'm not shaming. I'm just trying to take myself off that pedestal, first of all, because it's not true.
Mhm.
And second of all, when you meet someone who is enlightened, it is very, very different than meeting someone that might seem like they have a bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
Very different. Very, very different. And you don't want to follow someone who has a bit of knowledge if you're really going after the big apple. If you're going after the goal, you want someone who has achieved the goal.
Yes.
So I will answer your question the best way I can, although I think in a way I just did.
Okay. But thank you. Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to clarify that, because you're right. That question I asked you was a bit of a slippery slope, to say that a follower of a great mind, because they spent time in proximity with that person, they can represent that person. So thank you for pointing that out, because that's a huge statement.
Yeah, it's very important for all of us to see, and that
Yeah.
we all translate things differently from our point of view. It doesn't even mean that we're twisting it. It just means it gets twisted, not because we're bad or we're evil. It's because we're limited in our understanding of what they're trying to share with us, which
Yes.
basically is only about love, only and always about love, only and always. That's what they're sharing, and not some pansy pansy like Valentine's Day idea of love,
Yeah.
but love in the sense of compassion. You see someone suffering, you serve them
Mhm.
with discernment so you don't end up, you know, serving them in a way that's going to harm them. Just because someone is addicted to drugs, you don't want to necessarily give them more drugs, but that discernment might be they may need more drugs in that moment or they will die. Like that's discernment.
Yes.
See, that's discernment. Or an alcoholic, if he has DTs, he or she could die without that alcohol until you get it to a proper facility.
Mhm.
So it's not all, nothing is black and white. But the
Right.
things that I'm learning is the things that I'm telling you right now. This is basically what I'm learning. And my teacher doesn't talk to me. I think I've talked to her twice in 24 years.
Wow.
So it's being in her presence, and it's having dreams. And I don't have tons of dreams. Other people have had many more than I have. It's smelling incredible fragrances, which happens rarely but beautifully. It's when I do ask, it's getting darshan, which every time I go to India or she comes here, I get darshan, which is like a blessing. And she has said, if you knew the things that happened during darshan, you would never miss one. If you knew how much happened during darshan, you would never ever miss one. So I can tell that the suffering that I was in before I met her, even during her, even the suffering I get now, I still have suffering, but the difference between what it was like and how bleak life seemed to comparatively of what it's like now, and also being able to have the choice. And in some days it's easier than others. Today I was talking to a friend and it felt quite negative, and I could feel myself feeling negative. And then when I got off the phone, and it's not to blame them, everyone it feels positive and negative, and I was asking questions. When I got off the phone and started making my gorgeous stew that I just finished, I started listening to Ron Doss's book, which I highly recommend. And I decided in my mind, I'm like, oh, there's no need to be negative.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not going to pick up that negativity. Sometimes we can't do that. We don't have that awareness. I
Yes.
don't have that awareness. But sometimes you can have the awareness of like choice, of like, oh, there's no need for that. An amazing day. I love my soup. I love breathing. I love looking at this picture. I love listening to this audio book that I'm listening to. I get to do this interview. I get to do another astro reading. I get to have a delicious dinner tonight. Like, yes, it doesn't answer your question. Is there anything particular that I can actually say out loud because you like the nuggets? Do I have
Well,
any nugget of what I've learned?
and it was a loaded question. It's funny trying to whittle something down. But you know what? That's a Westerner thing to do when somebody wants the cliff notes of a life work of somebody. I basically asked you, all right, your guru. Your guru is a guru of this, and I want you to make it. Can you condense that into one paragraph so that I can then sell it? I think that is what Westerners tend to do with great messages, and in so doing, it's always lost. So, all right, I have one more question for you. You mentioned that you are a believer in reincarnation. I am as well. And I wanted to ask you, before the start of your next incarnation, if you're given the choice to come back as anyone or anything, who would you choose? Or would you choose to just keep it random?
No, I would choose not to come back to this plane. No way. Like, if I had a choice, I would be like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would like not to come back to this realm. I'm sure there's billions of realms beyond the human experience, and I'm grateful for it. I'm not going to say I'm not grateful for it, but if
Mhm.
I actually was lucky enough, which I probably am not, to have the choice of coming back to this plane, I would decline it. If I had no choice, it I don't think I would want to choose. I think I would trust um, my guru and all the work I've done in this life to give me the perfect life that I can grow more. So eventually, I don't have to come back to this realm.
Awesome. That was when I asked myself that question, my answer was I don't want to come back. I would
Mm.
rather be absorbed into the universe
Yeah.
than I don't. There's so much fear that people have of losing their ego, losing themselves, and life after death, and all this stuff. Life, I love my life. It is wonderful. I am surrounded by love, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I've worked a lot to get here, and so there are all these things. But at the same time, I'm also I'm good. I'm pretty content with this life, and then after
Mm.
this,
Mm.
if I could just get a really long nap, if I have to come back, sure, I will, but I would
You
like
will.
a break
You'll
first.
get a long nap. Don't worry. It'll happen. You'll get
Uh,
totally like, it will happen. It will happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is it sounds like we're very similar in that way. If I can
Yeah.
save the having to. Gosh, I was about to get really visceral and talk about body functions, but I'm going to go ahead and not do that today. But you know what? I guess that concludes this, what I was hoping to get out of this wonderful chat. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for asking. Thank you.